see. I got my boots on the ground.
I did a show with him the other day.
Did when? Where?
In Birmingham. We did a show at this place called the M Compound or something like that. It was me and him and this other guy that's local here.
That's
Um,
what's up.
yeah, he's a nice guy. And the little girl that went viral from Dance to the Song, the little 3-year-old, she's 4.
I
Um,
haven't seen that.
it's a little girl. She from Mississippi. She came. Uh, it was nice.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. So it's just us in here, so we'll go ahead and get to talking. Well, hey, Selena, they're popping in now. Welcome back to Verses and Vibes with Thinker and Bash. What's up, Cynthia? How are you? This is
Or verses
the
and vibes with Thinker and Thicker.
and
Because we
Thinker
found out
and
that
what?
and thicker because we found out that they was paying $25,000 a day if you was a thick woman, and I figured, I figured, I'm thick.
Did you find the post? Did you see it?
I didn't see it, but somebody
Uh,
sent it to me because I'm a call.
what's up, Marla? Hey, Isom, how are you? Deborah Grace, what's up? Yeah, that is insane, but it's also scary. It's because like what are they?
Definitely trafficking people
Yeah, on TikTok.
to go to jail. Go to jail.
That's insane. Okay, so this week, what's up, your host show? What's up, Nikita? What's up, we you or me?
Oh wow! Wait. Um, wait. I think I met her mother.
Riru?
I feel like is it? I feel like I met her mother. I think.
Where at a
If I-
show?
yeah, I think. It's, never mind. I don't want to put out too much
Oh,
information, but
I'm not sure.
I recognize that
That
name sounds
name?
really familiar. Yeah, and it was like, oh, I just saw that name somewhere. And the mother was saying that they, I don't know. I won't put out too much information, but anyway.
Oh, that's what's up if you did. And Ruanona, what's
Hmm.
up? They sound familiar?
No, that's not.
Oh, okay. Sheena, what's up? Miss Charlene, what's up? ASAP, Jim, what's up? There was somebody in Ria's live last night that was like trying to antagonize us, right? Like he was one of those evangelical Christian types.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Jimbo.
I know Jimbo.
You know Jimbo.
He's kind of a budgeting deal on YouTube. And he does apologetics on YouTube, and they are bad. They are bad. They're kind of like, and he's kind of snarky. He,
Wait,
very
he
like,
has a YouTube channel doing Christian apologetics.
yeah. If it's the same Jimbo,
Well, I talked shit to him last night.
yeah. If it's the same Jimbo, yeah.
I did not know, but um, yeah, like he was antagonizing us. But the reason why I brought it up is because Jimbo just sounds like Bubba in my head. Like they sound the same.
Yeah. I got a cousin from Opelika named Jim Bob. That's not his real name is Kenneth, but we call him Jim Bob. I don't
Where
know
did
why
Jim
we
Bob
call him
come
Jim Bob.
from?
I have no clue. And I've been calling him Jim Bob my whole life. That's his name, Jim Bob. But his real
Wow.
name is Kenneth Jr. But we call him Jim Bob.
Yeah, old country name. Like the whole time I was talking to him, I just kept thinking Bubba
Yeah,
Gump shrimp. Like I don't know,
Jimbo.
Jimbo sounds like Bubba.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, I think were you on the panel when Fee called that man Lurch?
She called that man Larry so smooth. We heard you, feet. Don't try to act like you ain't call that man Lurch.
But look, I was asleep and I was listening to y'all on the panel. But you know how you listen in your sleep?
Yeah,
I could hear it. And then every time he would talk, like it literally made my eyes go like
yeah.
I was, open my eyes. And in my head, his voice sounded like it looked like Bert from Bert and Ernie. That's all I kept thinking about.
Bert is crazy.
But then when Fee called that man Lurch, oh my god! And she did it so smooth,
She
and,
just
and
kept
then
going like she ain't said.
and then he just left.
Yeah.
He was
Been a
like,
lot of
"Oh
runners
yeah,
over there. People been rage quitting a lot lately.
mhm,
I don't know what's
yeah."
going on with that.
Because the Bible.
Yeah.
When you stick to the Bible and you don't allow for them to go off in fairy tale land,
Hmm.
it's not as fun for them because they don't get to create and make believe. And like I kind of figured now that to be a believer doesn't just mean to believe the Bible. It doesn't just mean to believe God. It means to believe the believer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if the believer can't create their stories or their testimonies and their narratives, it's not fun for them. They don't it's not the Bible that they really want you to believe in. They want you to believe in them and their experiences.
Yeah.
And
I've been saying this for a while. We don't believe the Bible. We Bible our beliefs.
yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And basically we turn our beliefs into a Bible instead of just
Mhm.
like, exegeting what's there. We eisegete what we want. Yeah.
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 And then they get holla upset if you
Upset.
don't. There's a new show on Netflix called Chaos with
Okay.
the Greek gods, Zeus and Poseidon, Hera, and all of them.
Yeah.
And the show is about how humans dedicate themselves to the gods their whole life. Every year, there is a human who voluntarily sacrifices themselves to Zeus in order to get like the next life to be just great,
Yeah.
right? And so they go through when they get to the other side, they're taken through this river into the frame where they get renewed. Where
Okay.
the end is so like it turns out that it's all a lie,
Of course.
and there is no renewal. The gods are um, sourcing their souls and turning it into water so that the gods can drink the water, and that's what gives the gods immortal life.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it makes me think about the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the garden,
I can see
and
that.
yeah, and then like people always say like, what was the tree there for? Like, why did the God put the tree there if he didn't want the humans to eat it? And
Yeah.
I said, well, has anybody ever thought that the tree was the food of the gods?
Mm.
Like the knowledge is what the gods ate because that knowledge, them controlling the knowledge of morality, right? What's good and what's bad, and not letting the humans have it is what gives them the control over humans and what creates the worship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the gods need the worship in order to be gods.
Yeah.
And then they already have immortality. And so
Or do they have immortality? Allow me to submit
that's true.
that humans make gods immortal, not the other way around.
Yep. That's true.
Right?
But
Because
and
there are
the
lots of
worship is what
yep,
make keeps them alive.
yep. Because there are a lot of gods that have lived, quote unquote, that no longer are alive because the people forgot about them.
Mhm.
Right? Like Moloch is not alive, or I don't know, Baal is not alive, or lots of gods have come and gone.
Yeah.
Just because their worshippers have come and gone
And Yahweh is fighting for his dear life right
for
now.
his life.
Kind of like Zeus was in the show Chaos. Like Zeus knew that things was falling apart. He had a prophecy that that he was going to end up being destroyed and that the family of gods was going to fall, and he's doing everything right now to try to stop it. Like he's sending earthquakes to like uh bring the fear and anxiety, famine. He's causing women to get great, children to get killed, stuff like that, to keep the humans on edge so that they'll continue to worship, right?
Yep.
And like that's the thing that not necessarily like the earthquakes, but the narratives that are built around it. If there's an earthquake, then some believer says that's God,
That's God.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
And it incites fear into the believers, and they worship more. They give more to the church. They witness more, right? They're out there saying God, this is the last and evil day. Like it turns it up a notch and it keeps the God alive,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
which
We,
is
we we
crazy.
give God everlasting life. We forgive his sins. We really do God a lot of favors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was a group called the Trojan Seven in the show, who would say, fuck the gods. Yeah. And they would show that the gods would punish them. for blasphemy, but they put up a monument with shit. Like they would like it was a day of like Easter, right? It was a day to worship Zeus,
Yeah.
and they had built a monument to the gods, and everybody's around getting ready to celebrate this monument uncovering. And when they uncovered it, it was a pile of shit and a sign that said "fuck the gods,"
Oh wow.
and they
Wow.
end up hanging them in front of everybody. End up hanging them and leaving them hanging. So it would scare people to um not say that. And then it talked about how parent the reason why there's two main characters, and the reason why they say fuck the gods is because their parents gave them up to the gods.
Yeah.
One of the characters mama killed him for the gods. um Another character, her mama cut her tongue out for the god, yeah, so that she could keep the god's secrets.
Mm.
Yeah, like it's just it's an interesting show, but it just reminds me of the promise of everlasting life, and who we are, like asking the believers, what will you do when you get there and you realize that there is no eternal life? Like it's just death. Like how do you know, right?
Yeah.
Um, that this promise of eternal life is actually going to be, and they just say, I know, but the reality is that you don't.
You couldn't know.
Yeah,
Not only don't you know, you it's not even possible to know. It's kind
and
of like when I the other day when I was asking Buddy, what is a God? Like what is that? You
I
know?
fucking loved that.
Yeah.
I
Because
love that
you can't
session.
know what it is. You just can't know that. Like there's you can't call it this indescribable thing and then try to describe it. You can't call it this incomprehensible thing and then try to comprehend it. You can't know that.
Mm-mm.
Right. And so you can't know what it wants. It's not possible to know what it wants because you don't know what it is.
You damn near sent series into like I don't know. There's no word for how series.
He was so mad with me.
Yes.
He was so mad with me. He wanted to figure something that he could say to me so bad. He wanted to argue with me so bad because he couldn't get past the fact that you can't say what this is. And if you
Mhm.
can't tell me what it is, you can't tell me what it wants. You can't tell me what it does. You can't tell me what it's got to do with me because you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just don't know that.
And that one guy was like, he was shocked that you asked that question. He was like stuttering all over himself, but in an honest way. Like
Mhm.
that one guy, I could appreciate his exchange with you. That's the part that I absolutely loved because it was almost like there was that realization, like, damn, I have no idea what this is.
You don't. And once you realize that I can't, I don't know what it is, and I can't know what it is, then it's like, okay, well, if I don't know what it is and I can't know what it is, then what am I doing with it? Like, how do I even know I have it? Or
Yeah.
how do I utilize it? What does it want from me? I don't even know what it is. Like, how could it want something from me? Or how do I know? Earlier today, we was talking to a guy about the Ten Commandments. He was talking about how he lives by the Ten Commandments. And I was like, well, you probably don't live by the Ten Commandments, right? You're talking about the commandments that Moses wrote in Exodus 20. And those are the Ten Commandments, right? And he just had no clue that those weren't the Ten Commandments. And I was like, let's go over here to Exodus 34. And we read the ones in Exodus 34. He was like, no, that's another set. And I was like, yeah, it's another set. And I was like, but you notice that there is no thou shalt not kill in this commandment? And he said, yeah. And I was like, you know why there's no thou shalt not kill in this commandment? And he said, no. And I was like, well, because right after this, he tells them to go kill people. Right after this, he tells them to go steal from people. Right after this, he tells them to take their wives. Right after this, he tells them to take their male and female servants from them. Right after, you get what I'm saying? So these 10 that you've been trying to hold to couldn't have been his covenant because
Mhm.
immediately after this set, he tells them to go do all the stuff that he said don't do in the first 10.
Yeah.
Right. Which makes more sense if it is a person just telling you their thoughts, right?
Mhm.
Like, because even when Moses broke the commandments, it wasn't that God was mad with them people. Moses was mad with them people,
Yeah.
right? Moses, because them people never heard that they shouldn't worship other gods. God just told God just told Moses that when he was up the hill, right? So when he come down there and see them people worshiping other gods, it wasn't no reason for God to be mad with them because God had even told them not to worship other gods yet.
It's a crazy thing. Like when we talk when we read today, the God goes up to Egypt with Jacob. That you know, like he
Yeah,
tells Jacob, I'm gonna go to Egypt with you. But and that'll be the thing that we, bring up to a believer, and they'll be like, he just said that just to be saying it because he's everywhere.
Wait till we get into that part. Like it, there's a real this whole Genesis story is really teaching me a lot about just the way that we think about like things that we hear. And I have this little idea I've been thinking about my non-believer friends and my believer friends, and how my non-believer friends are very focused on actions, like what transpired, what happened, and my believer friends are more concerned about who did it,
Mm,
right, than what happened, and how that changes the way we communicate. I,
mhm.
I'm really working on this because if I'm concerned with what happened and not who did it, I communicate from a very like it, objective might not be the right word, but like from a very like um what's the word? For lack of a better word, I'm gonna use the word objective. Like I'm just telling you what happened. That's it, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. This is what happened.
Mhm,
When I wrap what happened up in who did it, I make an emotional connection with the who instead of the what.
mhm.
So I can excuse anything depending on who did it, right?
Yeah,
And I can defend anything depending on who did it. But if I just look at what happened, then my defenses and my praises or whatever, good or bad,
change.
completely different. Yep. And
Yeah,
so we communicate completely different.
yeah. I had asked a guy last night on Ria's live, what example did he think their God set when he let David get away with committing so many crimes or sinning against the law and not having to pay the consequences that according to the law, but he had special consequences, or and I asked him, what example did your God set for humans when it comes to letting people who are special or chosen or specific positions to get away with stuff like that? Because because we kept talking about David broke the law 6 ways, right? And six times he broke the law. 6 times he should have been punished, and each time he was given grace and mercy to
Hmm.
do so. And he just kept saying, "Well, David repented." I said, "There's no condition. Like it doesn't say David has to. It doesn't say that you should be stoned for committing adultery unless you
Unless you
repent."
repent. Right.
And you're adding that he's like, well, he was a man after God's own heart. The only reason you're throwing these at me is because it's David, and
Yeah.
David was the king, and David was the ancestor of your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And so
Right.
you think David deserves the mercy that everybody else didn't get when they committed the crime.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
And
that is a topic that I'm running tonight.
that's the same thing that happens. Well, again, I'm not trying to stay away from politics, but there's the same thing that happens in our political discourse, right? It depends on who did the thing, right? It's not what happened; it's
Yeah.
who did it, who said that, right? And you can go from, I don't know if you remember, but like about 3 4 years ago, owning a Tesla was the most like anti right wing thing you could do, right? This for soy boys, and give me an American muscle car with gasoline, drill baby drill. Like it was very very right wing to be a truck on, big diesel truck, whatever truck. And all of a sudden, the new sign of the right is to own a Cybertruck, right? Like
Mm.
it's a right, and it's like, well, why is that the case? Well, it's because Elon Musk now represents what you like. Who said it, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's not that you care about what it's doing to the environment. You don't care about that. You just care about who said to do it, right? You
Yeah.
don't care about the what. You just care about the why. I mean, the who,
And didn't he say that it is anti-American to boycott Tesla?
right? And that boycotting is one of the, like, first and foremost. Skip being American. How is it anti anything to just say I don't want to do that?
Mhm.
I don't
But it's
want to
the
spend my
same thing
money
they
that way.
did with Israel when, you know, in my state, we are not allowed to boycott Israel, any companies in Israel. And if we do, then we are banned from getting any government funding for our business. Like we are not allowed to boycott Israel in my state.
See, see, and all of that is just. religion wrapped up in a politic, and it's about who said it.
Yeah,
Not
like if
yeah,
if they catch you on your social media saying that, you don't stand with Israel, and let's say there was a tornado and you need government funding to help rebuild your house or something like that, you can't get it,
that's crazy.
ain't it?
That's crazy. That's
They
crazy.
they passed that law in 2020
That's
in the
crazy.
in the middle of the night.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Never heard of that. That's crazy.
yeah, insane. I mean, 2022 in the middle of the night, insane. Yeah, but there's about 20 states who did that. 20 states who passed that law where you cannot boycott Israel.
That's insane. Wow, wow, did not know that.
Yeah, yeah. If you do, you don't get any government funding, any federal funding at all.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I didn't. Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Well, we at 46.
Yep,
Okay,
46.
that's pretty
All
good.
right. Alrighty. Okay. Yeah, Genesis 46. All right. When Israel set out on his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. God spoke to Israel in visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make of you a great nation there. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again, and Joseph's own hand shall close your eyes. Then Jacob set out from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried their father Jacob, their little ones, and their wives in the wagons that Pharaoh had sent to carry him. They also took their livestock and the goods that they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and they came into Egypt. Jacob and all his offspring with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, and his daughters and his sons' daughters. All his offspring he brought with him into Egypt. Now, these are the names of the Israelites, Jacob and his offspring who came to Egypt: Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and the children of Reuben: Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The children of Simeon: Jamil, Jamin, Ochad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, the son of the Canaanite woman. The children of Levi: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The children of Judah: Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. But and Onan died in the land of Canaan, and the children of Perez were Hezron and Hamul. The children of Issachar: Tola, Puva, Joshabub, and Shimron. The children of Zebulun: Sered, Elon, and Shalil.
Uh-huh.
I didn't even know Elon's name was in this book.
Yeah, yeah.
These are the sons of Leah, whom she bore to Jacob in Paddan Aram, together with his daughter Dinah, and all his sons and his daughters number 33. The children of Gad: Ziphion, Haggai, Shuni, Asbon, Eri, Arodi, and Areli. The children of Asher: Imnah, Ishva, Ishvi, Bariah, and their sister Sarah. The children of Bariah: Heber and Machil. These are the children of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to his daughter Leah, and these she bore to Jacob 16 persons. The children of Jacob's wife, Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin. To Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bore to him. The children of Benjamin: Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Ehi, Rosh, Muppim, Huppim, and Ard. This is what makes people fall asleep. These are the children of Rachel who were born to Jacob, 14 persons in all. The children of Dan: Hashum. The children of Naphtali: Jazil, Guni, Jezer, and Shalem. These are the children of Bilhah, whom Laban gave to his daughter Rachel, and these she bore to Jacob, 7 persons in all. All the persons belonging to Jacob who came into Egypt, who were his own offspring, not including the wives of his sons, were 66 persons in all. The children of Joseph who were born to him in Egypt were 2. All the persons of the house of Jacob who came into Egypt were 70. Wait,
He was
Joseph
at
had 2?
66, right? Then plus the last three made 69, plus Jacob made 70.
Who was Joseph's kid?
Joseph had, he had the kids with Potiphar's wife.
Yeah, but what were their names?
You just read them. Go back and read them again. He had the kids with Potiphar's daughter. I'm sorry, we just read them. You just
Joseph's
read them.
kid?
Hmm. Go back where you see Potiphar's with the priest of On or On.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Yeah,
Oh, to Joseph the land of Egypt was were born Manasseh and Ephraim.
Yeah,
That's
Manasseh and Ephraim.
Joseph.
Yeah,
Manasseh
yeah.
and Ephraim. Okay. Um. All right.
And
Uh,
they are later called the half tribes of Joseph.
but Ephraim is
Both of them, Ephraim and Manasseh, are called half tribes of Joseph
why half tribe?
because they take up like Joseph doesn't have a tribe, right? All these other guys, their tribes named after them. There is no tribe of Joseph. They are called the
Oh,
tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, or the half tribes of Joseph.
okay. But Ephraim is Israel, right? It's the north.
Ephraim becomes known as the north, yes, but Ephraim
Okay.
is one tribe.
Right.
Like Judah is the south, but Judah
Mhm.
is one tribe.
Right.
Right. So and then Manasseh is a tribe that's a part of Ephraim, which is all in the north.
Okay.
But if you ever talk about just the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, the nickname for them is the half tribes of Joseph.
Okay. And that's why when you see the charts, they're out on the side by themselves.
Mhm.
Okay. um, Israel sent Judah ahead to Joseph and led the way before him in Goshen. When they came to the land of Goshen, Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to meet his father Israel in Goshen. He presented himself to him, fell on his neck, and wept on his neck a good while. Israel said to Joseph, I can die now, having seen for myself that you are still alive. Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, I will go up and tell Pharaoh, and will say to him, my brothers and my father's household who were in the land of Canaan have come to me. The men are shepherds, for they have been keepers of livestock, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. When Pharaoh calls you and says, what is your occupation? You shall say, your servants have been keepers of livestock from our youth even until now, both we and our ancestors, in order that you may settle in the land of Goshen, because all shepherds are abhorrent to the Egyptians.
Mhm.
Pretty straightforward. Anything?
Mhm.
I got one thing. So Simeon and Judah go to Egypt here with them, right?
Yeah.
So yesterday I was studying Judges one because like I decided to read Judges again from beginning to end, right?
Okay.
To understand, like I'm building a case for Jezebel,
Okay.
like that this is like Jezebel had every right to try to purge the prophets of Yahweh out of her state because of the shit that they were doing during the time of the judges, right? Like
Okay.
if she had a lawyer and they said, oh, she was cutting off the kings, the prophets of Yahweh, well, look what the fuck they were doing. But
Okay.
Judges 1, it says when Joshua died, Judah took over and Simeon took over, right? And
Okay.
it says Judah said this and Simeon said this. Is it doesn't say the tribe of Judah said, right? Or the tribe of Simeon said,
Okay.
but it cannot possibly be talking about Judah and
So,
Simeon.
right. Couldn't be because they would have been long gone.
They would have been long gone.
Yeah.
So, like, how is it like it can't like wouldn't it say like in the tribe the Judites responded or the Simeonites responded instead of Judah said, uh, come with me to Canaan and fight with me to Canaan.
I mean, unless they're using it in like a representative case, kind of like if I say America went to war with I don't know China. Not everybody in America. There's no person in America won, and not everybody in America went. So it could be used in a representative sense, in a representative form,
When it
right?
says in America said,
Yeah,
or like
if
you said, Judah said to his
yeah,
brother Simeon.
yeah, it could be used in a representative form, not necessarily in the again because Judah and Simeon would be long gone, right? Like they would have been
Right.
dead a long time ago. So I'm assuming, and it could just be an anachronism. It could be, but
Or a
to
scribal
be
error.
a scribal error, it could be any of that. But I'm assuming that they mean this in a representative form. I'm assuming that's just an assumption. Keep in mind that's me trying to be charitable, right? I'm
Yeah.
assuming that is written in a representative form, where
Yeah.
a representative from the tribe spoke to a representative from another tribe.
Because like okay, here we have Judah's whole entire family going up to Egypt, right? Even his grandkids. But it's literally only been like 20 something years, 30 years since um Joseph has been in Egypt, since Judah and Reuben and them sold him into slavery.
Right.
And Judah didn't have kids before Joseph went up. So we know like the timeline of crunching Judah's entire line, right,
Mm.
into 30 years to where he became a father,
And a
had two
grandpa.
kids die, and a grandfather in
Hmm.
30 years, right? So it's
Yep.
like it's not it's not I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but it's not unheard of that they would have like illogical timelines in
Yeah.
here to tell the story. So that's why I was like, what the fuck? Like, how is Judah and Simeon talking at that time? But yeah,
Yeah.
but that's the only
And
thing
that's
I
why
see.
I can't rule out the fact that it's just a bad timeline. But to be as charitable as humanly possible here, it could be used in a representative sense. But I
Yeah,
can't rule out the fact that it could just be a bad timeline.
yeah. I'm gonna look to see if it does the first person narrative like that. In like when it refers to the Jews, like I do want to see if it's referring if it is a like a mishap.
Okay.
Um, but Genesis 47. Did you have anything else about 46?
I don't think so. That's just a list of kids that went down in Oh no, I do want to bring this up. Notice that you can see that number 70 right there, right? Which
Yeah.
is, it seems to be a call back to the sons of God, right? And later on when you get into Deuteronomy, what is that, 20? Where is that? Deuteronomy 29, where it talks about how how God split up the inheritance amongst the sons of God.
32.
32, 32.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, God splits up the inheritance amongst the sons of God, and that tends to be a reference back to El, who split up his inheritance amongst his 70 sons, right? And so
Okay.
you're establishing this 70 sons of God here, right? Yeah, just wanted to bring that
And
up.
they get the inheritance of Canaan,
Yes,
the land split up. Okay. So this is also a story of man becoming the god.
yeah,
Like their story matches the story of the gods, and
the
so
gods, yes,
yeah, and they're putting themselves in the place of the god.
yes, the children of the Most High God, which would be exactly what you would be saying about the sons of El, right? That
Hmm.
they are children of the Most High God, right?
Yeah.
That all these other gods, Baal and all these other gods are children of the Most High God, right?
Hmm.
El, right?
Yeah.
And Yahweh would have been, or either whatever, it would have been one of the children of the Most High God. And in this story, you basically take Israel's children and make them the children of Yahweh when
They
Yahweh kind of
replaced the
usurps.
other gods.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they became the demigods.
yes,
Yeah. Okay. So Joseph went in, okay, so chapter 47. So Joseph went and told Pharaoh, my father and my brothers with their flocks and herds and all that they possess have come from the land of Canaan. They are now in the land of Goshen. From among his brothers, he took 5 men and presented them to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to his brothers, what is your occupation? And they said to Pharaoh, your servants are shepherds, as our ancestors were. They said to Pharaoh, we have come to reside as aliens in the land, but there is no pasture for your servants' flocks, because the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. Now we ask you, let your servants settle in the land of Goshen. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best part of the land. Let them live in the land of Goshen. And if you know that there are capable men among them, put them in charge of my livestock. Then Joseph brought in his father Jacob and presented him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Jacob, how many are the years of your life? Jacob said to Pharaoh, the years of my earthly sojourn are 130. Few and hard have been the years of my life. They do not compare with the years of the life of my ancestors during their long sojourn. Then Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from the presence of Pharaoh. Joseph settled his father and his brothers and granted them a holding in the land of Egypt and the best part of the land and the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had instructed. And Joseph provided his father, his brothers, and all his father's household with food according to the number of their dependents. Now there was no food in all the land, for the famine was very severe. The land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished because of the famine. Joseph collected all the money to be found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan in exchange for the grain that they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. When the money from the land of Egypt and from the land of Canaan was spent, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, give us food. Why should we die before your eyes? For our money is gone. And Joseph answered, give me your livestock, and I will give you food in exchange for your livestock, if your money is gone. So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and Joseph gave them food in exchange for the horses, the flocks, the herds, and the donkeys. That year, he supplied them with food in exchange for all their livestock. When that year was ended, they came to him the following year and said to him, "We cannot hide from my Lord that all our money is spent, and the herds of cattle are my Lord's. There is nothing left in the sight of my Lord but our bodies and our lands. Shall we die before your eyes, before we and our land? Buy us and our land in exchange for food. We with our land will become slaves to Pharaoh. Just give us seed so that we may live and not die, and that the land may become desolate." So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. All the Egyptians sold their fields because the famine was severe upon them, and the land became Pharaoh's. As for the people, he made slaves of Egypt from one end of Egypt to the other. Only the land of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had a fixed allowance from Pharaoh and lived on the allowance that Pharaoh gave them. Therefore, they did not sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, "Now that I have this day bought you in your land for Pharaoh, here receive for you, sow the land. And at the harvest you shall give 1/5 to Pharaoh, and 4/5 shall be your own, as seed for the field, and as food for yourselves and your households, and as food for your little ones." They said, "You have saved our lives. May it please my Lord, we will be slaves to Pharaoh." So Joseph made it a statute concerning the land of Egypt, and it stands to this day, that Pharaoh should have the fifth. The land of the priests alone did not become Pharaoh's. Thus Israel settled in the land of Egypt in the region of Goshen, and they gained possessions in it and were fruitful and multiplied exceedingly. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the days of Jacob, the years of his life, were 147 years. When the time of Israel's death grew near, he called his son Joseph and said to him, "If I have found favor with you, put your hand under my thigh and promise to deal loyally and truly with me. Do not bury me in Egypt. When I die, when I lay down with my ancestors, carry me out of Egypt and bury me in in their burial place." He answered, "I will do as you have said." And he said, "Swear to me." And he swore to him. Then Israel bowed himself on the head of his bed.
That's the end of the chapter.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
end.
Pretty straightforward in that chapter, right? And
Yeah.
but just kind of off Bible. I mean, based on this, but watch out for this in real life. What happens is people, there's a struggle that goes on, right? And a famine that goes on. And first, people spend all their money, right? And it's like, all right, we'll take all your money. And then they're like, okay, I still need food. So here, you can have my land. And they go, all right, or you can have my livestock. All right, we'll take your livestock. And now I still need food. So now you can have me and my land. They go, all right, we'll take all that too. And then all of a sudden, the entire population becomes property of the state,
Hmm.
right? Not just the population, but the I mean, not just the land, but the people, all the resources, yada yada yada. And they then divvy out to the people, kind of like sharecropping. Okay, well, you can keep, give Pharaoh the fifth, and y'all keep the four-fifths, right? And watch out for that happening in real life,
Yeah.
right? Like when you start to see people amass wealth at the top, basically this is literally happening right now
Happening right now. Yeah. Yeah.
with farmers and stuff, right? And this is a way that wealthy people acquire people, right? This is how you do it,
It's
right?
the whole plan.
Yeah, right. You watch people as they go through these struggles, and as they lose their farms, somebody rich will come buy it, right? And they'll give you a little bit of money for it, and you're gonna burn through that money, and then eventually you're gonna have to, "Here, take my money back. Here, take my resources. Now you can just have me, right? Because I'm out of stuff and I gotta eat." So be careful. As you're. This is kind of just a word of I don't want to call it a word of warning, but just like, keep your eyes out. Make sure that, as a individual, that you're doing the best that you can to secure for yourself resources. Be mindful of your resources, right? Because the last thing you want to do is become some kind of need slave, right? And you'll see the same kind of slavery is the kind of slavery, or at least the basis for the kind of slavery that you'll find once you get to Leviticus, right? Like, oh, if your brother becomes too poor and has to sell himself to you, right? The issue is, well, how did you get that poor? Like, right? Like, where'd they get that as a practice from? Well, you see, this is the story of where that practice comes from.
Hmm.
Okay, you can't afford to feed yourself. All right, give me all your money first, and then on down it'll go and say, all right, What you can't do is take the top millstone. Now you're going too far, right? So even that, right? Because that's how that person gonna make grain and got, that's how they gonna make their food, blah blah blah. But if they become too poor and they have to sell themselves to you, right? This is how you treat them. Well, they getting this from, this is kind of rooted in this story, right? Where it's like, all right, y'all can be slaves and just give Pharaoh the fifth, but all of the actual resources here belong to the owner. The same thing that happens, like if you come here and they give you a wife, right? Cool, but the wife and the kids still belong to the master,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is kind of like a story set up for that later system of indentured servitude, or as we would call it, slavery. That you gonna run into in Deuteronomy and Leviticus.
Like saying Joseph was the creator of that system.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting too how Joseph caused this. Like he literally caused it by storing up the grain during
Mm-hmm.
the 7 years of plenty, and didn't warn the people that a famine was coming. So he put them in this position on
Mm-hmm.
purpose with the help of this God, right? And so like it was God's plan to get people to the point of starvation so that they would sell themselves into slavery under Joseph's plan. And I think like it's interesting because although the Pharaoh of Egypt was the Pharaoh, the story just keeps reiterating that Joseph
This
was
is
in
Joseph's idea.
control, right?
Yeah.
And that Joseph had the best, that Joseph was the Pharaoh was greater than Joseph only in title only, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that Joseph owned everything, and he was the one that could decide, right, what people got, and his family was treated and given the best because of who they were to Joseph, like even the favoritism, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think it's definitely a setup for that too. Um, and then like you want to answer Jolion's question.
What's under there? What's under what?
Put your hand under my thigh.
Oh, balls, balls. We have we still have a saying that says all I got is my balls and my word, and I try not to break either
Mhm.
one of them, right? And that you a way of taking an oath was you hold a man by the balls, or you put your hand on his thigh, you hold him by the balls, and you take the oath. And it's you don't break your balls, you don't break your word. That's yeah.
And so if you break your word, right after the men went under and like cup the balls, did they crush them for breaking your word? Like did they go back and like crush them or something?
Well, not necessarily. It was more symbolic than that. But you know that a man with crushed testicles isn't considered like worthy of the temple, right? So it's definitely a status kind of thing, right? Like
Mhm.
breaking your balls, breaking your word is a status thing. In the society, right? Like that's a man with crushed testicles can't come into the temple,
Mhm.
right? And so it's more of a status thing than a physical, actual breaking of the testicles. But it's
Yeah.
more symbolic. Yeah.
I think like it's interesting. Um like you they do their covenant with the cupping of the balls, the covenant with the tipping off of the you know
Mm-hmm.
the head, um
Mm-hmm.
and then like this whole religion has like this whole issue with homosexuality, but the religion is built on the penises of men.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's one big penis religion.
Hmm. There's a oh my god, there's a book. I gotta remember the name of it. Oh my god,
The foreskins, like collecting foreskins.
what is the name of this book? I cannot remember the name of it. But anyway, there's a lady who talked about it on TikTok the other day, and she was talking about how like if you look at a different at a culture, you can predict the kind of gods that they make, right?
Yeah.
And nomadic um patriarchal societies make vengeful, penis driven gods, right? And this is true, like not just in this one, but just go look at any other nomadic patriarchal societies and the kind of god they make the same idea. And because when you're nomadic and you're running into all your enemies and blah blah blah, it's very difficult to have children, right? Because you don't necessarily have a, a stable, like populations grow once you introduce agriculture, right? Because it's more difficult to keep people alive if you're moving around.
Mm.
So, having male children is a big deal, right? It's a big deal because male children can spawn so many offspring, blah, blah, blah. So that's a big, big deal. And it's more rooted in the culture, than I think a lot of people recognize. So yeah, it's a lot that has to do with the reproductive organs because it's hard. Like imagine if we didn't have houses, right? Or if we just living outside in tents and moving from place to place to place, trying to raise kids, right? Like a bunch of kids is not going to be the answer there,
Mm.
right? Because
Yeah.
it makes it difficult to transport, it makes it difficult to feed. You're dealing with famine. You know what I'm saying? You might run into a place where you don't have as much resources and blah blah blah. So you know, if you had to build a god there, you would build a god that favored reproduction, right? Because childbirth is so dangerous. And not only is childbirth dangerous, but like child life is dangerous, right? So you build a God that's very pro recreation. I mean, I said it wrong. Very pro procreation. I'm sorry,
Mm.
right? And just because that's a big part of like how your culture is going to survive is like we don't have any kids. You get what I'm saying? Or having kids is very it's difficult, you know what I'm saying, to raise kids to adulthood, because we're moving around so much and you got all these environmental factors and war and blah, 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 blah. So you lose a lot of sons. So you lose a lot of daughters too.
Yeah. Not to mention they were killing them like crazy. There was no law against killing a kid because they didn't listen to you.
There was a law for killing the kid if they didn't listen
Yeah.
to you. Yeah.
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 And then like killing the kid if it was a girl, like especially like in Rome,
Hmm.
and if it was a girl, they could just kill it. They were
Hmm.
no obligation to let it live.
But
And so
but at least, well, now I won't say at least, let me say in Rome, it was a different situation. They would, because Rome was more, what's the word I'm looking for? Agriculturally sustainable. Like Rome, they weren't migrants, right?
mhm.
They had systems of agriculture that's why they could develop such immaculate government, and they could build an empire because they were stable. They had water sources and yada yada yada. So their view on fertility was very different, right? And because they were more stable, that normally when you get to more stable places, you have what's the word I'm looking for? You have more gods. You tend to be more polytheistic when
Mm.
you're in more stable places, right? Because you have a god that just covers this element and a god that just covers that element. And yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You could
Yeah.
develop these stories because you got time to sit around and create this stuff. But when you're on the move, you kind of compress that into like, okay, I got one god that controls everything. He knows everything. Yada 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 yada. And then as that god grows, or as your society grows, that god gets more and more intricate in your life because I can't watch everybody, right? So now God is like, don't you do that, right? I might not see it, but God saw it, right?
Mhm.
Because again, you're moving from being this band of thieves, literally, to now you're starting to become a cult, get a more civilized culture, right? So I know I'm about a bunch of thieves, right? We just did some stealing together. Well, who's gonna keep it from stealing from me, right?
Mm.
Which is where you get that whole that covenant. May the Lord watch between me and thee,
Yeah.
right? Right, because right, his two. I know y'all some thieves because I'm one, right? So may the Lord watch between me and you while we absent, right? Um, but all of that comes from a culture of being going from being nomadic to being more stable, more. I use the word civilized, but I'm not saying from barbaric to civilized, but just like really building a civilization. Finding a place and growing it out. No different than um like what Louisiana was to America, right?
Mm.
Louisiana was started by the Acadians, right? Well, basically, that territory was inhabited by the Acadians, and we call them Cajuns now, but the Acadian people, and a lot of them were literally just French criminals that they sent over here, and they were a wild bunch, right? But they go from being these nomadic French criminals to like, okay, let's build a civilization. Well, that civilization is going to be a little different than like, colonized, proper British colonization. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so, and they're going to bring those pieces of culture. If you ever want to see something really, really fun, go watch videos of Cajun Mardi Gras. Wow. You like, that's a hell of a tradition. They got this whole like chicken catch thing that they do, where they'll just like let chickens run free, and the
Mhm.
whole town tries to catch them. And keep in mind they live in like swamps. You get what I'm saying? So like
Oh
it's
my
me-
gosh.
it's messy and dirty, and people sliding around in mud all day. But it's just this old Cajun tradition, right? Because they
Mhm.
came from a different place. Like most of these were like outlaws from France.
Yeah.
Most of, and they built that society because keep in mind there was all these criminals, so it was a bunch of boys, right? So you got all these men down there, not enough women, so they end up sending cassette girls over to not New Orleans, Louisiana, right? And the cassette girls were ladies of the night from France,
Oh, okay. Why they
right?
call them cassette girls?
Because they lived in small cases, lots like small suitcases. A
Oh.
small case is a cassette, right? So
Mhm.
like they all they had to their name was these little small suitcases or
Mhm.
cassettes, right? So they sent cassette girls. And they sent the cassette girls from France to Montreal. And if you even to this day, if you go to Montreal, a big part of their culture is sex work, right? They sent those girls over there to Montreal, and then they floated down the Mississippi to New Orleans. And so you could see those remnants still very, I say New Orleans to the Gulf, to the Gulf, not necessarily to the city of New Orleans, but to Louisiana.
Mhm.
And you can see those remnants in the culture now, right? Sometimes I think when we look at when we kind of anachronistically look back at these cultures, and we not watching it from start to finish. We kind of watching it from here, looking back. We forget the things that make that culture look that way. You get what I'm saying? Like, why is slavery in this culture? How did they get there? Why are they so penis driven? Right? What makes them that way? Right? Because it's not like just people just woke up one day and go, "I want to talk about dicks today." Right? Yeah, you know what's on my mind today? Dick. Yeah. But that there are things in a culture that kind of help shape that personality in a culture. And in this culture, them being nomadic and having such a hard time, fostering children and being able to raise and rear children makes reproductive shun. I'm sorry, reproduction super important. And so they talk a
Mhm.
lot about dicks in here.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you were talking about and I know we got 5 minutes left. I'm gonna say this real quickly. When you were talking about the difference between a civilized culture, a more established culture being more polytheistic or having more stories about gods instead of being monotheistic, right? And it was the less civilized cultures that were monotheistic.
Mm,
It made me think about how um, on the continent, a lot of the cultures were polytheistic, and
authentic.
I think I wonder if that speaks to the fact that a lot of them were civilized. A lot of them
Yeah.
had kingdoms like that. They don't teach us about, right?
Mhm.
Maria has started doing her lessons at the end of her life to teach more about the mythologies, the African gods, and their oral histories
Mhm.
at the end of her life. And then I'm reading Indaba My Children, the Zulu nations creation stories and their different gods and stuff. And I think it's interesting that you know like we can't it's to talk about our ancestors and their kingdoms is demonized,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because I think if we were to know that the reason why our ancestors had these pantheons of gods is because they were civilized
So
and
simple.
they could separate these ideas out,
Mhm. They had the time,
right?
and you get a lot of trade, right?
Hmm.
So you got all these other cultures around you that like come in with their stories, right? And you're gonna be like, we're trading together. I don't want to offend your story, So here, give me that. You know what I'm saying? And we'll
Hmm.
take this God, and because let's say you from the water. Let's say you from like, I'm just using for example. Let's say you were from some island off the coast, right? And so your gods are very big on water, right? Well, I'm more inland, so I don't really have this water god. I might have a rain god because we. I might already have a rain god, but I don't have like a god of the ocean because I don't live by the ocean, right? And so you come in and you teach me about the god of the ocean. Well, one day I'm coming out to visit you or to trade with you, and I see the ocean. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, Omawata. Okay, cool. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
so you end up transferring so many ideas that the popular the what am I trying to say? The populous place gets a ton of God ideas,
Mhm.
right? Because you
Kind
trade
of
with
like
so
what we
many.
see with the Babylonian stories, like in
Yeah,
the Hebrew stories, and like people were like, "Oh, this character is Lilith, or this character is this person," and it's not that it's a one to one like that they are that. It's the influence of hearing this story of this God, and then this culture created their own God based off of the
based off that guy, right?
yeah
Because
yeah
because you, I mean, you got to imagine, like, why would somebody who lived in the middle of Iraq need an ocean god?
hmm
What the fuck does the ocean have to do with you? Right?
exactly
Like you so far away from the ocean, but hey, the people who we trade from with, they came up from and they gave praise to. I'm gonna use Neptune for example because he happens to be like a body of water god. They gave praise to Neptune for these fish.
hmm
So we'll give praise to Neptune for these fish, and we might name Neptune something else over here, but it's influenced by this Neptune story. And I'm using Neptune anachronistically, so excuse me. I'm just that just happens to be a body of water god.
hmm
Um, but so
But I
the,
get
the
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
yes, so the big population, what the trade centers are, what a most developed trade is probably going to have more gods, right? Because they're getting all these influences from other places.
hmm
The smaller the population, the more um, the more monotheistic they tend to be, right?
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
they share similar problems, right? Everybody over here going through a drought right now. Everybody over here going through having trouble with having kids. Everybody over we're in the same place, so we got very similar problems.
That makes
But
sense.
yeah, the more you expand that, the more diverse the problems become, or the more diverse the drives become, right? Because again, like if you're in a place where population ain't really a problem, well, I, I don't care if I have a girl or a boy. We got plenty of people, right? If you're in a place where sustaining people is a problem, you might be like, oh, I don't know if I need to have that many kids. You get what
Mhm.
I'm saying? So the resources, all that kicks in to kind of put out a person's God idea. Last piece on that is imagine if you called me one day and said, I mean, this is completely hypothetical, and you said, Sebastian, I just saw a mouse in my house, right? Can you come kill it? And I said, Thinker, I'm on the way. And I showed up to kill the mouse, and I had a flamethrower, a shotgun, and a sledgehammer, right? And you say, well, what are you gonna do with that? And I say, kill a mouse. Now, true, I can kill a mouse with this, right? Like this is possible, but that might not be the best tool for the surrounding. Am I making
Mhm.
sense? Okay, all
Mhm.
right. It can kill a mouse, but it might not be the best tool for that. That's how transferring gods works sometimes,
Mhm.
right? Keep in mind, this is a nomadic group of people that become a civilization. So they brought with them this like nomadic idea, and then they tried to centralize it, and then they were conquered, and so they were colonized, and blah, blah, blah. And taking that very, very, nationalistic, it's us against the world. This is how we have to live in order for us to survive, right? And then
Mhm.
trying to transfer that into this like very diverse nation, this very trade influenced nation. This like we trade with folk all over the world, and right, like trying to put a thing that grew up that way and then plant it in a country that doesn't work that way is like me trying to kill a mouse with a flamethrower,
Mhm.
right? It can
Yeah.
kill a mouse. It's just probably not the best way to do it because the situation don't really call for that. We're a democracy, right? The enemy of democracy is fascism, right? This religion is fascist. It don't really fit
Yeah.
politically. It don't fit the culture. It don't fit the surroundings. That's not how we live, right? And we're trying to
Mhm.
take this God of like desert living and you know, and now we becoming nationalists and fascist to fit the religion versus fitting our actual real life circumstance. I just want to say that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Jolion says, I wonder when it turned into a competition or if it always was one. Like, are you talking about like a competition between the gods? I think it was always a competition between the gods and the nations and their gods, but it's the stories. It was the stories about their gods' miracles and whose gods could do the biggest and baddest miracles, who gods could help them, how many wars their gods helped them win, right? And then how those stories travel that would make a nation or the nation's army fear going up against another nation.
Mhm. Mhm. It was kind of propaganda for one nation to talk. You know, our God just destroyed 99 other nations. Whether that's true or not, it's not the point, right? It's
Right.
propaganda to, get out there and let you know, be scared of us.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what Rahab said. Well, we've heard the stories and we know that the God of Israel is true.
Mm-hmm.
And people always say, well, they knew that God existed because of Rahab. Though Rahab heard the stories.
Yeah.
Like that's what that's saying, that she's heard the stories travel, and that
Mm-hmm.
made the people inside Jericho fear the children of
Fear.
Israel.
Yep.
That's what the story is portraying. But that's how they used these gods back then
Mm-hmm.
in antiquity. But I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else?
No, that was fun. I got to do my last day of video shooting today, so I'm about to go get dressed for that, and then I got to fly to LA
Yay.
tomorrow, and I'll be in Nashville Wednesday.
Yay. So we did have dinner while you're here. We didn't get to have dinner last
I'll be there for
time.
like 2 weeks, so we got time.
Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, well, go and I hope you get some rest. Okay, are you able to get some rest before you go do the shoot? Because you
Maybe,
look
yeah, but I might
sleepy.
have like an hour to lay down, and then I'm gonna get up and get my clothes together and get moving.
Okay, because you have yawned like I don't know how many
Oh
times.
man, yeah, I've been having a
Yeah.
lot on my mind, so even when I'm sleeping, my brain's still running. But things are well. I
Okay.
appreciate y'all. I thank y'all for this time too, man. It's fun.
All right, you're so welcome. All right, y'all. We'll see y'all next Sunday with Versus and Vibes with Think and Bash. I'll see y'all on TikTok Live later tonight. I hope y'all have a wonderful day. Thank y'all so much for showing up. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with your favorite believer. Have a good
Absolutely.
one, y'all.
All
Bye.
right. Hit the button.